Here's a very useful example of how to calculate the standard deviation and the variance of the historical returns of a dividend-paying stock. Take a look at this data for large company stocks from 1926 to 1930. It goes right through that 1929 famous crash period that started the Great Depression. In 1926, the stock market return was 13.75. In 1927, the return was 35.7. In 1928, the return was 45.08%. Those returns look a lot similar to the returns we saw at the end of the last century. But then in 1929, we had a negative 8.8% return. And in 1930, a whole quarter of the market, 25.13%, was lost. The sum of these returns is 60.60%. If we square everything up, take the difference, and calculate the variance, we come up with 867.56. It turns out that the standard deviation is 29.45%. Now, exactly what that means has to be related to the normal distribution, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to show you the actual dispersion numbers for historical returns looking back from 1926 to 2002. And in fact, when we take a look at large company stocks, the arithmetic mean was 12.2%. The standard deviation is 20.5%. If we take a look at small stocks, the average return, the arithmetic mean, the simple return, is 16.9%. But the standard deviation is much more intense. It's 33.2%. So you get a higher return for small stocks, but you have a lot more volatility of those returns, and thus you have more risk of even bigger losses. When we take a look at long-term corporate bonds, the arithmetic mean is 6.2%, and the standard deviation associated with bonds is 8.7%. So when you actually purchase interest-bearing investments, you will get a lower return, but you'll get lower volatility as well. And when we look at long-term government bonds, the arithmetic mean is 5.8% with a standard deviation of 9.4%. Intermediate term government bonds have an arithmetic mean of 5.6% with standard deviation of 5.8%. So you can see that the volatility on that investment is even lower than the prior four that we've talked about already. The U.S. Treasury bill average simple arithmetic return was 3.8% with a standard deviation of 3.2%. So here we can see that the risk-free investment of U.S. Treasury bills does indeed have the lowest volatility, and thus the lowest risk of every single investment we've looked at so far. Inflation increased the value of a dollar by 3.1% with a standard deviation of 4.4%. But that value is not real value. It's not real value because that does not buy the same amount as it did a year before. Shall we say that you have no increase in purchasing power as inflation increases the size of the dollar that you're actually using to buy goods and services for your household.